I shall talk on liquor volume abnormalities. What is amniotic fluid? It is a clear yellowish liquid that surrounds and protects the fetus during pregnancy. It is contained in the amniotic sac. What are its functions? During pregnancy, it acts as a shock absorber so as to protect the fetus from any kind of external injury and also against umbilical cord compression. It helps in the swallowing process. It is essential for the GI tract development and also for fetal breathing. It plays an important role for the development of the lung. It helps to maintain the temperature of the fetus, allows free movement and growth of the fetus. It provides a pool for the fetus to excrete urine. It prevents adhesion formation between fetal parts and the amniotic sac. It also has got certain nutritive value because it contains small amount of protein and salt. During labor, it forms a hydrostatic wedge to help in dilatation of the cervix. During uterine contractions, the amniotic fluid in the intact membranes prevents interference with the placental circulation. It protects the fetus from ascending infections by its bactericidal action. What is the physiology of amniotic fluid? The maintenance of the amniotic fluid is a dynamic process. Its origin and composition are different at different gestational ages. Early in pregnancy, the amniotic cavity is filled with the fluid that is similar in composition to the extracellular fluid. During the first half of pregnancy, transfer of water and other small molecules takes place across the amnion. It also takes place across the fetal vessels on the placental surface and across the fetal gill. It is an ultrafiltrate of maternal plasma and a transudate of fetal plasma. Fetal urine production begins only around 8 to 11 weeks, but it does not become a major component of amniotic fluid until the second trimester. This amniotic fluid early in pregnancy is isoosmolar with fetal and maternal plasma. Now, in the later part of gestation, there are four main pathways that play a role in the fluid volume regulation of the amniotic fluid. One is there is urine production, fetal urine production of around 1000 ml per day. Then by means of resorption by swallowing by the fetus around 750 ml per day. Then fetal lung fluid secretion is around 350 ml per day. Then there is intramembranous flow across the fetal vessels on the placental surface resorption of around 400 ml per day. And there is minimal transmembranous flow across the amniotic membrane resorption. This fluid is hypoosmolar. Normal amniotic fluid volume at around 12 weeks is 50 ml, 400 ml at 20 weeks and around 1 liter at 36 to 38 weeks of pregnancy. After that, the amount diminishes so that it becomes around 600 to 800 ml at term pregnancy. If the pregnancy continues beyond term, then there is further reduction of the amount. So it comes down to around 200 ml if the pregnancy continues up till 43 weeks. Now, how do we measure this amniotic fluid volume? So we can measure the single deepest vertical pocket, DVP, or pocket depth. The normal range is 2 to 8 centimeters. So if it is above this, we call it hydramnios or polyhydramnios, and if it is below 2 centimeters, we call it oligohydramnios. Next is amniotic fluid index, where we take the sum of the deepest vertical pockets in the 4 uterine quadrants, and the normal range here is 5 to 24 centimeters. The amniotic fluid volume is an important predictor of fetal well-being in pregnancies beyond 40 weeks of gestation. It is a predictor of fetal tolerance of labor. Now we come to oligohydramnios. So it means an abnormally decreased amount of amniotic fluid. So roughly we consider an amount less than 200 ml at term to be oligohydramnios. It complicates around 1 to 2% of pregnancies. When there is no measurable LICA pocket, we use the term anhydramnios. Sonographically, an AFI less than or equal to 5 cm or a single leafless pocket of amniotic fluid less than or equal to 2 cm is considered as oligohydramnios. And borderline oligohydramnios, this term is somewhat controversial, but it usually refers to AFI between 5 to 8 cm. So what are the causes of oligohydramnios? So there are lots of causes. First we come to the fetal causes. So it includes chromosomal anomalies like triploidies, trisomy 18, Turner syndrome, various congenital abnormalities, which may include genitourinary problems, cardiac problems, problems in the CNS, cloacal dysgenesis, cystic hygroma, diaphragmatic hernia, skeletal malformations, microcolon intestinal hypoperistalsis syndrome, and VACTERL, that is vertebral, anal, cardiac, tracheoesophageal, limb and renal deformities. And fetal growth restriction, fetal demise, intrauterine infections, then trap sequence and twin-twin transfusion syndrome, and hypothyroidism. Maternal causes are post-term pregnancy, ruptured membranes, uteroplacental insufficiency, hypertensive disorders, diabetes. Also, there are certain placental complications like placental causes like abruptio placentae, amniotic band syndrome, amnion nodosum, where there is failure of secretion by the cells of the amnion. And iatrogenic causes include use of drugs like prostaglandin synthesis inhibitors and ACE inhibitors. And then we have idiopathic causes. Now, complications. Fetal prognosis is worse if the onset of oligohydramnios is early. So we may come across complications like abortion, pulmonary hypoplasia, fetal compression syndrome, such as altered shape of the skull, wry neck, clubfoot, limb amputation, amniotic band syndrome, umbilical cord compression, meconium aspiration syndrome. So all these add up to high fetal mortality. Oligohydramnios is a frequent finding in pregnancies involving intrauterine growth restriction and is most likely secondary to decreased fetal blood volume, renal blood flow, and subsequently reduced fetal urine output. And complications in the mother includes prolonged labor and increased operative interference. So how do we diagnose a case of oligohydramnios? So the size of the uterus is smaller than the period of amenorrhea. Patient usually perceives less fetal movement. The uterus feels full of fetus because of scanty liquor. Malpresentation is a common finding. There may be evidences of intrauterine growth retardation of the fetus. And then we confirm our diagnosis by doing a sonography, where we see that the largest liquor pool is less than 2 cm. Sometimes for better ultrasound visualization, we may need to fill up an additional amount of normal saline into the uterus, that is around 300 ml of warm saline solution. This is called amnioinfusion. At the same time, also by sonography, we can rule out anomalies in the fetus. Oligohydramnios associated with fetal symmetric growth restriction is usually associated with increased chromosomal abnormalities. Now, how do we manage a case of oligohydramnios? So we advise adequate rest, which usually helps to decrease dehydration. Then hydration, which is particularly useful if the patient is in labor or prior to external cephalic version or ultrasonography. We go for serial ultrasonography to monitor the growth of the fetus, look for the liquor volume and the biophysical profile. Then we think of termination of the pregnancy either by induction of labor or by cesarean section. This is considered if the fetal lung maturity is attained or the baby suffers from some kind of lethal malformation, fetus is in a distressed condition, if there is severe growth restriction of the fetus, if the oligohydramnios is very severe. So for all these we need to put her on antepartum, intrapartum fetal surveillance. Then amnioinfusion, this is done as a treatment procedure for variable or prolonged deceleration. And prophylactically, it is also done for women with oligohydramnios or with prolonged ruptured membranes with an attempt to dilute or wash out thick meconium. Then there is a drug called L-arginine which we use nowadays, which is believed to increase uteroplacental blood flow through nitric oxide mediated dilatation of the vessels, thereby increasing the supply of nutrients to the fetus and helping its growth. Supplementary therapy with oral arginine seems to be promising in improving the fetal well-being, neonatal outcome, and prolonging pregnancy complicated with preeclampsia and oligohydramnios. Then there is a drug called desmopressin, which is still under research settings. It is believed to prevent diuresis resulting in maternal plasma hypotonicity, thereby resulting in fetal plasma hypotonicity, increased fetal urine production and reduced fetal swallowing, all these adding up to increased amniotic fluid volume. Next, we direct our treatment to treatment of the cause responsible for causing oligohydramnios, such as if it is drug induced, we omit the drug. If it is a case of premature rupture of membrane, we induce labor. If it is preterm premature rupture of membrane, we start her on antibiotics and steroid followed by induction of labor. Then we may go for laser photocoagulation in case of twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. If we diagnose the fetus as having posterior urethral valves, we go for karyotyping, perform serial bladder drainage every 3 to 4 days. Isotonic urine, if present, it indicates poor function. If there is evidence of good prognostic biochemical markers, we may go for vesicoamniotic shunts. Next, we come to polyhydramnios. This means an excess amount of amniotic fluid, roughly around more than 2 liters at term pregnancy. Ultrasonographically, when the single deepest pocket is more than or equal to 8 cm or the amniotic fluid index is more than or equal to 25 cm. There are 3 categories: mild, moderate and severe. Most of the cases that we come across are mild cases, where the pocket depth is between 8 to 9.9 cm, AFI 25 to 29.9 cm. 20% cases are moderate, pocket depth being 10 to 11.9 cm and AFI 30 to 34.9 cm. And severe cases where the PD is more than or equal to 12 cm and AFI more than or equal to 35 cm. It complicates around 1 to 2% of all pregnancies. Causes includes fetal congenital anomalies, mainly severe CNS abnormalities like anencephaly, hydranencephaly or holoprosencephaly, all of which leads to impaired fetal swallowing. It may be related to fetal neuromuscular disorders, obstruction of the fetal upper GI tract like esophageal or duodenal atresia, which again impairs the fetal swallowing. Other obstructive causes: severe fetal thoracic abnormalities, pelvic uretero junction obstruction, and rarely certain tumors like fetal sacrococcygeal teratoma, fetal mesoblastic nephroma, and large placental chorioangiomas. Then diabetes is responsible for around 15 to 20% of polyhydramnios cases. Maternal hyperglycemia leads to fetal hyperglycemia with resulting fetal osmotic diuresis into the amniotic fluid compartment, which in turn leads to increased liquor volume. In multifetal pregnancy, then immune and non-immune hydrops. Here the underlying pathophysiology is complex but is frequently related to a high cardiac output state. Severe fetal anemia is the classic example. Infections like cytomegalovirus, toxoplasmosis, syphilis, and parvovirus. Then placental hemangioma and idiopathic causes. If a fetal abnormality is encountered concurrent with hydramnios, amniocentesis should be considered because here there is a high risk of having aneuploidy. Clinical types. So hydramnios may be chronic, which is the more commoner one, around 10 times more common than acute form. Here the onset is insidious, taking several weeks, and the patient may be symptomatic or asymptomatic. In the acute variety, the onset is sudden within few days or may appear acutely on a pre-existing chronic variety. It usually begins before 20 weeks of pregnancy and presents with symptoms, and labor may start as early as 28 weeks of pregnancy. It may present as acute abdomen, that is abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, breathlessness which increases on lying down position. The patient looks ill, but there is no feature of shock. Symptoms are mainly due to mechanical causes. Dyspnea is more common in supine position. Then patient may complain of palpitation, edema, oliguria resulting from ureteral obstruction by an enlarged uterus, and reduced fetal movement perception. At times, patient may present with complications like preeclampsia, premature rupture of membrane, preterm labor, placental abruption, or cord prolapse. The abdomen is markedly enlarged. It is globular with fullness in the flanks. The skin of the abdomen is generally tense and shiny with large stria. The height of the uterus is usually more than the corresponding period of amenorrhea, and the abdominal girth is also more. Fetal parts are usually not well defined. External ballottement is more easily elicited. Malpresentations are quite common and presenting part is usually high up. Fluid trill is present. It is difficult to auscultate the fetal heart sound, and on internal examination we find that the cervix is pulled high up. Sometimes it may be dilated, which may admit tip of finger through which we can feel a tense bag of membrane. Coming to the complications of polyhydramnios. So maternal complications during pregnancy are abortion, preterm labor, premature rupture of membrane, cord prolapse, placental abruption, malpresentation, non-engagement of the presenting part, and pressure symptoms like dyspnea, palpitation, and edema of the lower limbs. During labor, again premature rupture of membrane, there may be prolapse of the arm or the cord, then abruptio placentae due to rapid escape of liquor with premature separation of the placenta. Patient may go into splanchnic shock if there is rapid escape of the fluid, so that the pressure exerted by the uterus on the splanchnic vessels drops suddenly, leading to pooling of blood in the splanchnic area, and the patient goes into shock. There may be postpartum hemorrhage due to uterine atony, or due to retained placenta, or due to prolonged labor. Purpural complications include subinvolution. Fetal complications. Fetal prognosis worsens with more severe degree of polyhydramnios, and also presence of congenital anomalies, preterm birth, abruptio placentae, and cord prolapse. The diagnostic approach to polyhydramnios consists of examination of the mother with an investigation for diabetes mellitus, diabetes insipidus, and Rh isoimmunization. Then we need to confirm our diagnosis by doing a sonography, where we not only see the Leica volume but also rule out any congenital anomaly in the fetus. In some cases, we may need to go for fetal karyotyping and maternal serological testing for syphilis if it is suspected. Management. Treatment is directed in most situations to the underlying cause, such as if the lady has got diabetes mellitus, we need to control her blood sugar level. Minor degrees usually do not require any treatment. Bed rest, diuretics, salt and water restriction have been tried but are ineffective. Hospitalization is indicated if the patient suffers from dyspnea, abdominal pain, or she has difficulty in ambulation. We may use the drug indomethacin, which has been found to decrease amniotic fluid as it reduces the fetal urine output, impairs the lung liquid production, and also enhances its absorption. It helps in the fluid movement across the fetal membranes. But it has certain complications, like it may cause premature closure of the ductus arteriosus, impairment of renal function, and cerebral vasoconstriction. We may need to go for amnioreduction. Occasionally, severe polyhydramnios may result in the development of maternal respiratory compromise. In such cases, we go for amnioreduction, that is large volume amniocentesis, where approximately 1000 to 1500 ml of fluid is slowly withdrawn during approximately 30 minutes time, depending on the severity of hydramnios and gestational age. The goal is to restore the amniotic fluid volume to an upper normal range. It helps to relieve the maternal distress, and also we can use the fluid to test for fetal lung maturity. Hydramnios, which is severe enough to necessitate amnioreduction, almost invariably has got an underlying etiology, and subsequent amnioreduction procedures may be required as often as weekly to semi-weekly. Generally, this is performed later in gestation, and it has risk of rupture of membranes, preterm labor, chorioamnionitis, and abruptio placentae.